Good evening and welcome to SportsZone. I'm your host, Steven Lucero, and you might be wondering about the hat. It's because UNT, your North Texas Mean Green, are 5-0 for the first time since 1959, guys. And I'm pretty sure that's the last time this hat was in style, so I think it fits. But I'm joined by Josh Ortega and Cooper Lyday. Guys, this is historic because 5-0, first time since 1959, but beyond that, UNT has just been rolling this season. It's been incredible, and I want to go to you, Josh, first. Shout you out because he was on Mean Green Game Day this Saturday for the first time live at DACU Stadium in quite a few years. So it was pretty awesome. You went full Lee Corsos, Stone Cold Steve Austin at the end. So tell me, what were your expectations going into that game, and then what did you see from the Mean Green against South Alabama?
I think, as always, the way this team has played, the expectation was always high. You know, when you're playing at home, and the games we've seen so far this season, they've been electric. Obviously, the start for South Alabama, they went out and scored in the first drive of the series for them. But really, it was high expectations all the way. You knew that UNT was the better team on the day, just going into this matchup, obviously with the win versus Army, as South Alabama gets the first touchdown of the game there. But for me, it was really the run game. Drew Mestemaker played phenomenal going into this game. I think that Mackenzie McGill and Caleb Hawkins were phenomenal on the ground just for these two. But expectation with this team, so far this season, they've shown us they are very good offensively, and as you see there, getting in the end zone. But very high expectations for this team.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been wild what this team's been able to do. I want to say it one more time. 1959, guys, in 1959, Alaska and Hawaii just became states, and the Twilight Zone premiered for the first time ever.
Geez, the Twilight Zone's around that long?
Yeah, it's been around a while. So, I mean, just to put it in perspective, what this team's doing is incredible. Another great grab there. Unfortunately, that one's knocked out. That was kind of the one early blunder for UNT.
Yeah.
I think this is a game where you end up winning, but maybe you wanted to see it just a little bit more. They did cover the spread, but I was still pretty impressed overall. Cooper, what did you see from UNT in this game?
Honestly, other than their defense, which in my opinion was a bit lax, and and Bishop Davenport, he honestly took advantage of that through both the run and the pass. And honestly, UNT just needs to work on better communication and adjustments on the fly. However, UNT's offense was looking great. Again, the two-headed monster on the ground with Mackenzie McGill and Caleb Hawkins, they were doing great. And Drew Mestemaker, being as efficient as he ever been all season, he's just been proving why he's a great quarterback for UNT.
Yeah, definitely. Mestemaker's just been so solid all around. And you mentioned Caleb Hawkins, and I want to mention him again because the true freshman running back has been absolutely incredible. He had 218 total yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. So he led not only the team in rushing, but also the team in receiving. And that just says pretty much everything that you need to know about Caleb Hawkins. So guys, tell me a little bit about what you saw from him. Now, 7 touchdowns in the last 2 games.
I mean, it's extremely impressive at the end of the day when you think about his age, right? Obviously, coming into camp, they were really high on him just as a prospect. But what he's done the last 2 games, 4 touchdowns against Army, 4 today because he caught one. So 3 rushing, 4 in the receiving work. I mean, he's just been phenomenal. I think he's already tied for top 5 in touchdowns in all running backs across the nation. So just phenomenal stats from him.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Mestemaker had 234 yards and a touchdown. We talked about Caleb Hawkins. And I just want to talk a little bit more and ask you, Cooper. Caleb Hawkins now, we said, true freshman running back. And he said, hey, he's up there amongst the nation's leaders. Do you think he deserves to be in national conversation for one of the best running backs in the U.S.?
Maybe not just yet. That might be pushing a bit too far. He's definitely in the conversation for the American Conference, one of their best backs. But I think he's a freshman, like you said. If he continues to develop, maybe possibly even being a key factor into leading these UNT to the playoffs, if they do make it, he could definitely be in that conversation by the end of the season.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, what he's been able to do and just the potential he's shown as a freshman is really amazing. Him and Mackenzie McGill has just created an incredible duo in the running game. And I want to ask you, Josh, how much do you think that has helped Drew Mestemaker to where he doesn't have to throw 300 yards and 4 touchdowns to win a game?
I think you just hit on the head. I mean, really, it helps this offense, for one, just flow. I mean, when you have an offense and you have an air raid offense like the Mean Green have, you want defenses to condense so you can spread out the football. With having a run game with McGill, with Hawkins, even with Kiefer Sibley when he comes back, and Jaden Becks, having those guys who can be difference makers in the run game helps open up the passing attack and helps Drew be Drew and not have to play hero ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Drew Mestemaker's been awesome, but I mean, the box score doesn't go crazy. You know, it doesn't jump off the sheet because he hasn't had to do that. And that's just shown the balance of UNT's offense. But I do want to ask you guys, the receivers haven't done maybe as much as you'd like to see. Guys like Landon Sides, maybe there were some higher expectations for him. So I'll ask you, Cooper, do you think that receivers do need to get more involved to beat a team like South Florida in a couple weeks?
I definitely do think so, but honestly, don't break what isn't broken among their running game. But yeah, definitely against USF, they might need to incorporate more passing offense, but their running game has been phenomenal, so they might not need to change much.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And then Josh, looking at the defense, they maybe allowed a little more than you wanted to against South Alabama compared to some of the other teams they faced, but still a 36-22 victory. I'm not going to be too mad about that, but looking at the defense, is there anything you'd like to see maybe improve there?
I think the run game is always one thing. They didn't really take away the football too much. Obviously, they did a lot against Army. They've done really all
throughout the
year.
season, yeah.
Really, they've taken away the football really well. But run game, obviously, against Army, it was rough. Against Western Michigan, it was rough. It was kind of rough against South Alabama, but it's almost like kind of looking for a needle in a haystack.
Exactly.
This defense is really good compared to what it was last year, where we're running three-man fronts
Yes, I know.
in college football, which is, I'm not even going to get into that. But overall, they just played well. But there are like nicks and crannies you have to still fix.
Yeah, I agree. Skylar Cassidy, I think, has had a huge impact on that. But guys, I want to zoom out just a little bit because we talked about UNT getting 2 votes last week, and that was historic. First time since 2018. This week, moved up a little more. They got 7 votes. So now, 5-0, they're going into a bye week next week. Where do you think they stand, Cooper? And do you think they have a shot to be ranked, maybe if they can get a win against South Florida?
Yeah, honestly, that game against USF on October 10th is going to be critical. And USF had the most votes without being in the top 25. So if they do pull out that upset win over USF, they very well could be ranked within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. South Florida's right there on the edge. And do you think, Josh, that there's a chance that they're ranked by the time they come here to Denton?
That one's kind of tough. I do think that this team has played really well. I think I said it on game day, but like the South Florida game is going to tell tales for what we know this team. This team is a very good team. It passes the eye test for a good football team. But in terms of the national media and the AP and everything else that goes into that, a game versus South Florida that you have to win should put you in the top 25, seeing that we're seeing this go up in trajectory. But overall, going into it and against South Florida, it's going to be a little tough because you're not playing, and it's harder to get votes when you're not playing.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting, though, because I just think that South Florida very well could be ranked themselves going into that game. And Cooper, if you are, do you think that helps UNT's chances if they can get a win?
Definitely. UNT could overtake USF, maybe being maybe mid-20s, like 25, 24, if they do pull out that win. And who knows for the rest of the season, maybe.
Yeah, UNT hasn't been ranked again since 1959 in the top 25, so it's going to be exciting to watch. But I want to zoom out even more. Talk about the college football playoffs, because I know it's early. I know, I try not to get ahead of myself, especially with you have a long season ahead. But the American Conference has been incredibly strong this year. I mean, Memphis, South Florida, Navy, all of them have been top of the conference not only, but really making an argument to be ranked, to be in the top 25. So I'll ask you guys, the way it's looking is I think that G5 seed might just come from the American Conference. Do you guys agree?
No, I agree. I think that the play has been phenomenal. The American so far this season, I can't see where we go anywhere else.
Yep. Cooper, do you think it comes from the American? And what do you think UNT's chances are against some of those other top teams?
I could very well see that. It come from the American. However, some of their competition, some of their top competition is probably teams like you mentioned Memphis after being a big team like Arkansas, and then USF after also being a big team like Florida. That's probably their top competition in that place.
Yeah, it's going to be close, and there's a lot of top teams. So I'll ask you, Josh, do you think UNT can find a way to get into that playoff spot potentially?
I mean, I think if you beat USF, the resume builder is there. Yeah. So that's a big win if you can get that. But overall, I think the game against Navy later in the season, if they don't beat USF, will probably be the telltale whether they do or they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that game's going to be huge. And I'll ask you, Cooper, Navy, South Florida, UNT, Memphis. Who do you think has the best shot coming out?
I mean, I gotta say UNT.
All right, all right, going with the mean green. It's gonna be exciting because UNT, what they've done this season, it's different. It feels different. Yeah. And what Mestemaker's done, Caleb Hawkins, all these guys as first years, how do you think that they can build this going into the season and maybe even sticking around? Do you see these guys staying, or do you think they transfer after this year?
It's hard just the way we are in college football with the portal, with it having now only one portal in the winter. Mm-hmm. Your hope is they stick around. Whether Morris will stick around is a whole different question mark right now with the Oklahoma State job coming open and the Arkansas job coming open. So we'll have to wait and see, but you hope they can stick around and really kind of keep this program cemented.
Yep, I certainly hope so as well. And it's gonna be exciting though, because even though we can worry about next year. For now, UNT is 5-0 going into the bye week, and we'll see what they can do Friday night against South Florida. But next, we're gonna talk about the Dallas Cowboys after this break.